All right. I think we're live.
We live?
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial
Hello.
Podcast. I think this is our first time trying to YouTube live for this. So
Yeah, I don't think we've done one live episode. Where was that?
on a different app,
It was some app. Yeah.
podcast app of some type.
Yeah.
So we'll
Pretty
see
exciting.
if anyone joins in to watch live. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. Otherwise, we're gonna chat today a little bit about some of our quarter one business endeavors, how those different things went, different things we learned, we're working on along the way, and then the big thing we're looking forward to this summer with our car rental Turo business. Chat a little bit about that and our plans moving ahead. So, Kelly, you got something to start us out with?
Yes. So we normally do a question of the day. Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just posting the link to Instagram so people could watch live if you want. We normally do a question of the day to open it up just to get our minds open, and I don't know, I find it always interesting to ask you the question and see what you come up with. So, would you rather be allergic to grass or be allergic to chocolate? And just for clarification,
to grass or
he
chocolate?
is not allergic to either of these things.
I am allergic to grass.
Are you?
Yeah.
I thought it was just trees.
No,
definitely
grass.
Well, I guess.
So I would choose chocolate because chocolate you can avoid, grass you can. There you go. Chocolate's overrated.
Well, you do live in the Arctic. We can avoid grass like half the year. Well, majority of the year.
It sucks to be allergic to grass.
Yeah. I did not realize that.
Because being allergic to chocolate, yeah, it's not fun.
You have a lot of
but
allergies,
you can avoid eating it, right?
Grass?
Chocolate.
I'm joking. Yeah.
Grass, if you're allergic to it, just being around it can be a problem.
And then grass, you end up like sitting or laying on, or ended up like you can like fall or like rub your skin all in it.
Exactly.
It's
not so.
That's great. Funny. Well,
what's your answer?
Maybe I should change. That
was an easy question
because you're already allergic to grass too. I don't know. I probably would say the same, but that's so hard because I love chocolate. So I don't know. Yeah, I see what you're getting at though. Avoiding it is a lot easier.
Yeah, really is.
Avoiding the chocolate versus avoiding the grass, like that's difficult, especially for like spring, summertime as it's like growing and whatnot. Does it bother you when it's dead, like the dead grass, like that still bothers you?
I think more so spring, summer, that kind of time of year.
This time of year is not great for you. April, May. Yeah, it's not good.
Anyway, let's talk about something more exciting.
Sorry,
that was kind of a drag.
That's funny.
So, our two main businesses right now, we've got our Amazon Ecommerce. That's done phenomenally well over the last 6 to 8 months. Really seeing steady increase in sales as we scale and grow, and been trying a lot of different techniques in tweaking the business model so that we can scale our revenue and profits while spending less time ourselves working in that business. So we'll go ahead and start with that business. And I think the big change we've had, I know for a couple months there in the fall, we were doing our profit loss, and we'll probably pick back up with that at some point here. I think those were interesting videos, podcasts that a lot of people enjoyed.
Yeah, it just takes a little bit of extra
set
up ahead of time.
Exactly. But I need to be doing those numbers or hiring someone to do those numbers.
We definitely have them when we finished out 2021 because tax season is now, well, clearly it's the 20th of April. So we've done that already. completed those numbers. So we have like that accounting from the end of last, because I think we finished up with maybe October, November-ish. The last profit loss we did. Last profit loss video we did. So we have the rest of the videos, but
yeah, last year, all in between Amazon and a little bit eBay stuff, we were around 460,000 in sales for the year. Pretty exciting for our first year full time doing all that. So that was cool. But what's even cooler is if we look at a 12-month spread, we're already at 545K for the last 12 months. That's just on Amazon.
That's really exciting.
A little bit elsewhere, not too much. And then year to date being a huge portion of that. Oh man, that's kind of hard. There we go. 220K so far this year, which is pretty awesome. Really excited about that. A little less than some of our goals. Trying to do 1 million this year, so a little behind on that goal. Really should be in the 300 something range at this time in April. But there's plenty of time to catch up. There might be some hot summer products like last year.
Right.
Definitely some opportunity in Q4 as well. So January, February were about the same sales numbers there, around 65, 68K. And I think profit wise, that's in the 10 to 15K range. Most of that being reinvested into additional inventory. March went down a little. It was about 52K, 54K. And one of the big things there is been really focusing on switching more to OA using a prep center. And so with that, a little bit of learning curve on my part. That's something I'm not as confident or experienced in. So I've made a few purchasing mistakes along the way. And that's also fully relying on using a prep center. And the lead time for that is the biggest thing that's slowed down our March and April sales. And so a bit of a learning curve with that. Hopefully May, June, we get back up to the above 60, 70K mark. Definitely see even this month so far, things are starting to pick up a little. Like beginning of the month was slow. We were averaging around $1,000 days, and now we're up a little higher in the maybe close to 1,800 days on average for the last week or so. And that's mostly all FBA from OA and using the prep center. So if you don't know what that means, so I guess maybe we should back up a second. With Amazon, there's a lot of different business models, different types of things. There's I'll start with the ones that we don't do. There's private label. What that is you find a manufacturer somewhere and you get them to make a product or get a product that they already make, and you put your private label on it, your brand. You brand that product. You make your own listing on Amazon. You try to market it through their system or outside of their system. That's private label. We haven't done that. Another one is wholesale. That's something we might try in the future, but that's primarily contacting brands or distributors directly, purchasing in bulk in order to leverage lower prices and then sell those on Amazon. That's basically what your general retail stores are doing, but at a brick and mortar type thing. That's what Walmart does. They're getting wholesale deals from different distributors or directly from brands. And then there's what our business model has been primarily, which is more of an arbitrage, and that's taking advantage of price differences in the market. So say locally, a certain product isn't selling well because we're in Anchorage, Alaska, and there's just not the demand for it, but there's a really hot demand for it in Florida. We take advantage of that price difference, demand difference, and we use Amazon's platform to provide the shipping, customer service, and connecting with buyers. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. We started with doing that with used books, finding them locally, and then finding products locally at retail stores, new in box, sometimes clearance, sometimes just regular off the shelf. And now transitioning that more to an online arbitrage method. And so with that, there's a little bit of increased lead time and stuff with how the cash flow model goes. But really excited about that. Also hired a virtual assistant to help with finding leads. She's been working for us about 2 months now. Yeah, I think that's the biggest updates there for the Amazon business. Real excited for the future, and I think learned a few things this tax season to take forward to next year.
Yeah.
Things to try to do throughout the year to make the final taxes a little easier. Anything to add?
Maybe touch a little bit on. I was going to ask you, like, I mean, I know the answer to this, but explain to viewers or listeners your like goals for growing specifically the Amazon business, e-commerce, and whatnot. What are your goals as we've finished out the tax season, finished out 2021? We naturally, like most people, set goals for the following year, this upcoming year. So
Like sales revenue goals and stuff
well,
like that?
yeah, sure. Anything like, or just structure change or goal changes. Because even from the beginning of 2021, you had originally, or maybe go into that, like what were your goals from like last year a little bit? And then how has that changed, like even throughout last year into this year?
Yeah. So last year, started the year primarily doing used books. And so with that mostly in mind and still being kind of new to some of the Amazon platform, a steep learning curve, my overall sales goal was 300 grand revenue. And the first, I don't know, actually, let's see, I'm looking here. Through our first month, really above like 35K in sales wasn't until September. So most of the year was decently lower sales. It was kind of flat. Not a whole lot of what's the word, increase from month to month. Just wasn't able to scale. And then finally figured some different things out in towards the end of the year. And then there was a little uptick with fourth quarter boost. And then trying to carry that into this year and continue to scale. But we hit 300K in sales around October, I want to say. Maybe even a little earlier. And so that was really exciting. And then I set the goal to do 500K in sales. We didn't quite get there. We were I think about 50K short, but that was definitely really exciting.
Yeah,
That's
very exciting.
A good bit higher than I thought was even possible. And so this year, now that I have an idea of what's possible and a better idea of kind of what our average profit margins and things look like, the goal is a million in revenue. And I think the real important thing with setting goals is revenue is cool and all, but it's ultimately the profit that matters. How much profit are you getting from that? Like, you could do $1 million in revenue, but not make any money at all off it.
Right.
And so,
right.
I think the revenue goal is important, but the profit goal I think is even more important. And the big thing there is knowing your average numbers. What's your average profit margin? Things like that, in order to help assess those two numbers. So that's the goal. And primarily this business right now is our big breadwinner, paying the bills. And then the reason we're trying to continue scaling it is to get an increased cash flow in order to ultimately finance some other different business endeavors. So And then another goal for this year is kind of time-based, based off of how much time I invest into the business, and trying to keep that pretty steady. I think the goal right now is around 20 hours a week on this business, and then spend other working hours on other different things like this podcast or our other business we'll talk about in a few minutes. So I think that answers your question there.
Yeah, I think that explains it well. We yeah, we've really like learned a lot last year, it being the first like full year of just full-time business endeavors, being entrepreneurs, owning our own businesses, and going off of that. And so there's a lot to learn from that. And then moving forward, how do you grow? So, yeah, setting goals is like super important. So, if you don't set goals for yourself, specifically with your business or in other ways, we would highly recommend it because it really helps. It, like, even something that might seem small to you, if you set like an achievable goal, like if Josiah were to say, I want to make $10 trillion off Amazon next year or this year. I mean, that's not like, I don't think it would be completely impossible, but not the level we're scaling and capable of doing right now. Like, so you still have to think like achievable, but also think of it like, um, you still have to like set those things and say them and like write them down and like then work backwards. Like if that's your goal by the end of the year, how do you do that? You can't just wait till last week of December.
I think with an Amazon-based business, no matter what your business model is, you're probably most limited by the capital you have or your ability to source the inventory you want to get. For example, it's not ridiculous to say that someone could sell 50, 60 million this year on Amazon. I've met some guys that do that. Is that ridiculous for us? I would say with our current cash flow and capital, yes.
Right.
With my current experience and knowledge and sourcing techniques, yes. Biggest thing that we need to change is we need to get a lot more money from somewhere. We need hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in inventory to get there. And so that's a big variable to consider in setting those goals.
Going off that too, I know we've had conversations before regarding that. Like when you're growing a business or specifically Amazon or whatever you're doing, when do you know to either you've like peaked or that you want to stop, what was the word? Not just growing, stop scaling.
Kind of just maintain your current.
Like, yeah, right. Like, do you, like, I know you've chatted about, and like, clearly that's not your goal for this year, but maybe in the future, but you've talked about before with me, Amazon, your e-commerce businesses or business, excuse me, wanting it to be like, there's a stopping point at some point for you on when you stop scaling. Like you've said before, I think you've even said on the podcast, you don't want 100 employees working at a warehouse locally. Like that's not a goal for this business for you. Not that you're completely against having employees, just more like for this business, that's not our intention or your intention for that. So how do you, I don't know, just
I think it's
maybe specifically for this business or not.
It's important to consider your purpose behind your goals. As some other Amazon sellers have said, if you're just chasing the money, you're never going to get it. If our only goal is $1 million in sales this year, well, next year we'll want to do 2 million or 3 million. And for the next 10 years, we'll just keep doubling or whatever our revenue profit goals. And to what ends? What's the purpose? And I think right now, I do foresee eventually at some point kind of coming to a sales revenue time invested number for Amazon where I'm kind of that's all we want to do. We want to focus on other endeavors with additional time. I don't know what that'll be, but right now the primarily goal is be able to pay our bills and the current lifestyle we want, and then have an additional amount of profit from there in order to pour into other projects.
That's pretty wild to think too, that if your goal this year / what you realized you were doing last year is to only be working 20 hours on specifically the Amazon business. You do other things those other hours. It's not like you're just twiddling your thumbs. But if you're only doing 20, if somebody were to come back and say, well, wait a second, you could scale it so much faster if you maybe put in 40, if you put in 30, if you put in X, Y, and Z amount of hours. Now, to clarify, since we have such a flexible schedule, there are times where you don't probably put in 20 one week, but then the following week or the week after, whatever, over a couple weeks ahead of time, whatever. Like if we know something's coming up or we know vacation's coming, you end up not probably doing 20 hours that week.
Yeah, I
But
think
then you cover it in other weeks where you do end up putting a little bit more in other weeks. But on average, it's about 20 hours a week just on that business.
Yeah. I think
like why that number and why that thought process, I guess.
Yeah, I think for example, currently this month I'm a little behind with some of the inventory spending goals. And that's mostly because we were in Florida the first week or so of April and I didn't really work at all. I wanted to take a break and that noticeably has impacted the sourcing goals that I have. And so with that, that's something that I have in mind now, how to not impact the business in the future when I do want to take time completely off. And so that's how do you do that? That's ultimately probably employees and better processes and systems. And so that's a big focus of this year is try to grow that out so that not working in the business every day, but more so working on and managing the systems that we've created.
Yeah. Speaking of April, being in Florida, or I guess it's April right now. I just meant early April into March. You want to tell them why you went?
Yeah. It's the first time I've ever participated in something like this. Is the Miami Sellers Conference 2022, hosted by Taylor Jones and Avery Romer. Phenomenal event. It was all Amazon sellers from all across the country, across the world. Couple international guys came. And really cool opportunity to meet a lot of different sellers, network and communicate with them, learn things from them, learn things about what brought them to Amazon, what's working for them, and then some really phenomenal speakers that are overall experts in the industry. Some doing 50 mil, 60 mil a year, some with very much automated systems run by their employees, and they have a ton of control over their lifestyle and what they want to do in their daily lives. So yeah, ton of cool stuff that I learned there. Definitely glad I went, and it was motivating to actually meet with some people that I've chatted with online, or just in general meet with other full-time and part-time Amazon sellers. It's not really. I've never really had a face-to-face conversation with someone else who seriously sells on Amazon. So that was really beneficial. And I definitely recommend whatever industry you're in, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, look for other people in that space and network with them. They're your peers. It'll help encourage and motivate you throughout your journey, and you can learn from them, and you can share stuff with them so they can learn from you. Definitely worthwhile. And the beach was cool too.
It was nice.
Although it was really, really hot.
It was really hot.
At least for us. It was like
Yeah.
80s, 90s
It
a couple
was
days.
very hot.
We had a tough time.
When we went to the Everglades that one day, and we went for this like short, like little hike thing. There was like a little, like short, very short trail. And we get like a little bit down the trail. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm okay. And then you went a little bit further and then came back. And then we got in the car, and the rental car we had a, temperature gauge for the outside. And now it had been sitting there for a little bit, like maybe a half hour or so, not very long. And it was like well over 100 degrees. Like that it was
Right,
registering. It was like, oh my. And then once we got the car moving, I think it was like mid 90s or something. Yeah, it was hot. Coming from what was it, like 30-degree weather?
Yeah, it was
Upper
a
30s.
little above freezing when
A little above freezing
we left here in
when we
Alaska.
left. Yeah, that's like 60 degrees difference. It was significant. But I mean, for the most part, most days were great. I mean, I think it was like upper 80s, mid 80s most days. And being in Miami, it was breezy. It was good.
Yeah,
It was a good time.
So let's shift gears to our other main business focus, which is our travel business, Travel Last Frontier. We've got two parts to that business right now. The one is travel agency focused on helping people plan itineraries and plan their travels when coming to Alaska. And so we helped a number of people over the past couple of years. Some of that's been up and down with the pandemic and some struggles there. And I
Naturally.
guess a bit of a personal learning curve as we figure out how to market that. But if you're interested in coming to visit Alaska, hit us up. We can help you out in any way that you need help. So we've had some work this first quarter, planning out itineraries and such for clients. And then the big thing we're looking at right now is our Turo rental cars. Now, we've had them listed. We've had one car. Our first car was listed in end of July, beginning of August. And it's been listed.
It might have been the last weekend in July we listed it, but I think technically it was August.
Okay. It's been listed full time since August when we listed it, all throughout the winter. Winter was a little up and down as far as revenue. Some months that were pretty good. Some months where I think we have had maybe 2 or 3 months where we had 0 rentals. Kind of every other month throughout the winter, which is interesting. Some of it's maybe
February was not great, and then April so far has been terrible.
Yeah, like we haven't had any rentals yet this current month, April, and it's now the month is almost over, so 20th.
It's the 20th.
Some of that's maybe a little bit of a learning curve on our part in figuring out how to appropriately price, and some of it's just the demand. Don't think there's a lot of people coming to Alaska in April. And with that also, there's a lot of Turo hosts locally that only list their cars during the summer. And noticed the market kind of got flooded by those people this month in April. So there's been an increase of 300-400 cars this month.
I would say that's very unique about Alaska travel, or specifically Turo industry, compared to the rest of the country. Would you agree? I mean, I'm not saying that people don't do it seasonally based off their needs and wants in other states or other parts of the country. Like based off, like, they have their winter car and then their summer, maybe motorcycle or car, and then they switch them out, and list the other one on Turo, I guess. Maybe not the motorcycle in certain states, but during the winter is what I'm referencing. You do not want to drive your motorcycle in winter, especially up here. That would be, I don't even think you're allowed to.
Yeah, it's definitely very seasonal.
Right. So it kind of depends, but very unique part of Alaska, especially travel season. Naturally, when do people want to come? In the summertime, because it's warmer. I wouldn't say hot. It's warmer. Though it can get up to like mid 90s in certain parts of Alaska, certain days. A couple years ago in Anchorage, the high wind, like I think it ended up being July 4th. So July 4th was the hottest day of the year that year. And it was like 95 and it was awful. We'll say that because twofold, the sun's out. And that's why also people like to travel, because the sun's out. Literally all day we get, at least in Anchorage, we get up to 20 hours of sunlight. And then in a day. And then the other reason being, like, since the sun doesn't go down, it just gets warmer all day. Like there is like no cooling off in the evening.
Right.
It just stays warm. So it is, I mean, it's beautiful, beautifuls. It's beautiful in the summertime. So highly recommend coming up. But winter is awesome too. You just don't see it as often. Not as many people want to come up in the winter, which is not too super surprising. I think maybe too with that, people are too intimidated. We would encourage it. I think it's not too hard to do. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of great things to do in the winter still. A lot of people come to view the northern lights. That's something you can really only do in the winter. Kind of the beginning and end of the winter is usually the best time to do that. We like April's pretty good. Um,
March is probably the best.
yeah, March and April, and then beginning of the winter,
Right. September, October.
October.
Yeah.
There's a lot of winter activities, snow machining. There's some glacier related stuff if you're more into extreme adventures. There's dog sledding.
Yeah.
Most notable being a lot of people come to watch the Iditarod and some other races that are throughout the state.
Yukon Quest also starts in Alaska. And they specifically start in Fairbanks.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's an international one that it ends in Canada, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Looking at our vehicles though, and we knew this when we started out. The winters were kind of going to be a toss up, and I think we started thinking, let's try with our one. We got a Toyota Highlander. Let's try running it for like year round and see what happens throughout the winter.
Right.
And overall, little hit and miss, but I think it was worth it to keep it running throughout the winter. And then in December, we added a second vehicle to Toyota Sequoia. And that one as well has kind of been the same as the Highlander, good every other month. They match up which month.
Right.
So I think it really is a bit of a supply demand thing as far as travelers coming. With that, I just pulled up, if you're on Turo and as a host, pull up link up with carsync.io. Pretty cool software. It's free. They just mine your data and then I don't know, sell it to China or something, but whatever. It pulls in a lot of data from Turo as far as your vehicles and other people's vehicles and compiles it for you. It gets some really interesting things. For example,
you get way more information than you would just off of Turo. You're taking a lot of, I would say, guesswork on not guessing whether you're hosting or not, just guessing on like what's the going rate, how many people are actually looking. You won't know unless you get something like CarSync.
Yeah. And one thing that I found really interesting is there's some fleet metrics, and you can look at your vehicles specifically. Like, for example,
it's really nerdy. There's a lot of numbers, so don't get intimidated. There's just a lot of numbers.
Yeah, there's a lot that we still are exploring with this,
right,
and trying to figure out how we can use this data to enable future decision making. Like for example, we now have a 8-seater SUV and a 7-seater SUV. There's definitely a big difference in the purchase price between those. And ultimately, one big business-based question is, will the 8-seater that cost quite a bit more end up outperforming the 7-seater because of the additional value it provides? Or in the future, should we just focus on 7-seaters because they're more affordable and they ultimately get about the same revenue?
sure.
Right now, we've had the Highlander listed since August. It's had 21 rentals, and overall revenue, this is money paid to us into our bank after Turo took their cut, around $8,600. Now, we definitely had a decent number of expenses like insurance and some fuel here and there and some maintenance, and we've paid a cleaner many times to clean it for us between rentals. So that's not 8,600 that we pocket as profit, but
Sure, yeah.
definitely the vast majority of that is. And so that's
And
pretty
for
cool.
clarification, just to reiterate, That only was starting in the beginning of August of 2021 through right now, end April of 2022. So we're not even hitting like the actual peak season of Alaska in as a whole travel season, and especially skyrocketing in prices in
Yeah.
June, July.
Yeah, and with that, our utilization rate has been around 44%, meaning 44% of the time the car has been listed, it's been with a renter. So we definitely like to see that a lot higher, but that's ultimately skewed because it's
We don't have
been
a full
listed
year of
for
data. Yeah.
primarily just the winter. So excited to see what a full year worth of statistics will show us with that vehicle specifically. Sequoia's been listed since December.
No, try again. Oh,
Sequoia's been
yeah.
listed since
Yeah,
December.
that's fair.
Total revenue around $2,800.
I forgot. I was thinking from our first renter, which wasn't until like, I don't know, a week or so into January.
Yeah. Our first
My
rental
apologies.
wasn't until January, but we listed it in December.
I forgot because the Highlander also, we listed it, and like within a handful of days, like we got a booking like the next day or day after. Like it was a quicker turnaround, but that was also because it was August. So to be fair.
Yeah, and so the Sequoia, because it's only been listed during the winter, has a lower utilization rate. It's at about 31%. I think hopefully after we get a full year's worth of metrics and we can kind of see the combination of summer and winter, I'm hoping we can get our utilization rate to 60-70%.
Yeah,
for
that would be
the year on
awesome.
average. I think that'd be really good.
For both cars or just one?
For any vehicles that we put on Turo, I think that would be a pretty good target.
I would agree with you. Because maybe somebody might like, why would we say that's good versus doing it 100%? Why wouldn't we?
Well, 100% would be great, but I don't think that's possible in the winter because of the drop in demand. And you're never going to get 100% because of the blank space between rentals. Sometimes you'll get like 2 days, sometimes you only get a couple hours, but there's going to be space between rentals. And so ultimately, I don't think it's possible to get 100%. Probably the highest you could get is like low 90s.
Right.
I think that's probably the highest that's
I think
feasible.
that'd be fair.
And when you factor in, maybe we could get a really high rental percentage in the winter, but I think we'd have to drop our prices lower than we really want to, because ultimately at some point you're getting a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle, and if somebody's gonna drive your SUV 200 miles per day and you're only gonna profit $10 a day, is that worth it? When you factor in the wear and tear, the depreciation from those miles, and maybe future maintenance related to those additional miles, you might actually be losing money, and you're still having to do work. So sometimes it is to your benefit, I think, to let the car sit if the pricing isn't at the level you desire.
Yeah, I thought that's been super interesting. I remember there was a time we heard somebody say, I don't know if it was related to Turo or somebody else. They were like, "Oh, I was just want like 100% like of their schedule or whatnot fully booked." And it was just like, "Oh, well, too full with that." What you were just saying, like you don't want to, you might be either underpricing too low. Like you don't want to be the cheapest one in your market. Like that's not your goal. You should not be doing that goal. Cuz that's not that actually might not be profitable like what you were just explaining. And two, like typically like most people are not like outrageously raising the prices on something because they're not going to get a renter or they're not going to get a sale on whatever you're selling. Like that's why how our economy works, right? It's a buying and selling agreement on that's like a buyer's market, seller's market. It doesn't matter. Like you're still in agreement on whether you want to buy the item at that price or not, and you can say no, it's too much, or other way around. You're like, great, let's do it, and then they start raising rates, or other stuff affects the economy. It's not just that basic, but you got to think in terms of there's not just like I bought this car, I want my money back on what I bought it at. It's beyond that. It's also like the maintenance now you have to put into it and like continued maintenance. And then also, even if it's not super, super expensive maintenance, and even if it's a great car, you might have more wear and tear or depreciate faster because of the amount of mileage that somebody's putting on it when they're renting it naturally.
Yeah, and in the kind of service-based industry, that's kind of what this is. We're providing a service of a rental vehicle. I think it's worth considering your target customer. And if you have the cheapest car listed out there, you're going to get a certain type of customer. Maybe the type that's not as inclined to take care of the vehicle, or they
Right.
might smoke in it. They might leave it trashed. They might even steal it. They might be trying to sell drugs from it,
Right.
or they might not be the best, safest driver. And so to this point, we've focused on um, the seat number, trying to target families. There seems to be, in probably any market across the US, it's a little harder to rent a vehicle with 7, 8+ seats. And so that's what we started with targeting. And that's done pretty well. Most of our renters have taken very good care of the vehicle. I will say sometimes kids are a little messy. I think
Shock.
some of the strangest things we found is kids using cup holders as basically bowls. There was one.
Oh,
there was
yeah,
there was a
that
cup
one
holder
time.
filled with like Cheetos. There was also
That
a
one wasn't as bad as
straight up an omelet
that
in one of the
was
cup
bad.
holders. That was weird.
that
And
was
then
weird.
the other one was an entire slice of pizza, safely stored between two seats in that crack. Maybe saved for later.
That was terrible. I think there were a couple bites out of it.
Yeah,
but
nothing that ultimately caused damage, and we had a cleaner take care of those problems, and nothing that couldn't be cleaned. I think
Right.
that's part of our target customer in there is most likely going to be families with kids, and that's just the nature of kids. But
Yeah.
I'd rather have that than someone who's going to be smoking in the vehicle or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, looking
And for
forward,
the most part, most people have like taken very good care of it. And like off of that, what our market is and the cars we have right now, we've been also looking at the market regarding like the national brands, not just on Turo, like not just looking at other competition on Turo, but looking at what the national brands locally in Anchorage, or I mean, I guess we could look at Alaska, but we're renting out of Anchorage and it has to be returned to Anchorage. So we're just looking at it there. And I'm telling you right now, like it's not good. It's hard to find a rental vehicle even for May. They're very, very limited starting at the beginning of May through the rest of the summer. They've got sedans and some smaller SUVs that seat 5, which is fine, but if you are a family, like it's not looking good for a big company. I think there was only one that I found that actually advertised that they had something in that seating, like 7 to 8 seat range.
Yeah.
And they were only had availability at the beginning, sometime in May. Like I think it was like beginning to mid-May. Everything else is like booked up. Like Hertz right now, like they don't have a single car. I think they might have like one car available starting like mid-May on. Like you can't find a car on Hertz.
Yeah.
There's a couple other companies. I think what's the other one? Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
I was just
Budget.
looking specifically out of the airport, but you can find an Enterprise and Hertz in like town as well. So Hertz, Enterprise, Budget, and I think was it Alamo. I think there's another one called Alamo. And then there's also some other smaller businesses that sell that have rental cars, and they don't have as big of lots. And I'm telling you, like all these places are very, very limited. So if you want a car, especially if it's like you want multiple seats, more than 5, like you need more than 5 seats, we would highly recommend checking out Turo. I mean, of course we're going to advertise our own, but check out Turo, because I mean, we don't even have availability for most of July. Like our Sequoia is booked out.
It's a phenomenal business opportunity if you're here in Alaska, and you have some cash or some the ability to get a vehicle. For example, July, we're probably only about 50% booked for July between our two vehicles right now. And we're set to have around 6 to 7 grand in revenue deposited in our bank account after Turo fees. That's amazing.
It's just over 50%. I think we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days left in July that are even open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other vehicle is not really booked at all. That's why I say 50%.
Oh, okay.
Between the two vehicles.
Fair.
So
Between
like
the two vehicles.
thinking about in the lifetime of our Toyota Highlander, we've had around 8 grand. But then in 1 month this summer, we'll get pretty close to that. So
right. Just with one car.
Supply and demand economics, you can charge a higher price when there's more demand than supply. So with that, one other thing we're going to try this summer, we just picked up a third vehicle for Turo. We got a Mazda 3. Try a sedan out, see how that goes. And depending on how it goes through the summer, this might be something that we continue to run through the winter, or we might just sell it at the end of the summer. But if we can get roughly the numbers and the overall utilization that we think we can get, I think it's possible for us to recoup what we spent on the vehicle by the end of the summer, which is pretty amazing. About 100% return ROI within like 4 months. That's pretty good, especially with how we have some different systems and processes in place so we don't have to spend a ton of time in this business. And moving to talk about that, one thing that's kind of slowed us down here in March and April is we had a really good situation set up with a parking lot near the airport, as well as a cleaner that was there. He was really quite reliable, and some things just kind of fell apart with that situation in the last towards the end of the winter here. And so we've been working on finding another way to do the turnovers.
Still at a parking lot near the airport, so still like offering the same thing we were doing, just not the same specific location. Somebody might ask like why we're doing that. Anchorage Airport does not, and I'm pretty sure
Fairbanks, I would say our don't tell our HOA we have 5 cars parked around the neighborhood right now.
You just announced.
I'm sorry, Todd.
Thanks, Todd, for watching. I guess.
I think ultimately, if we had the ability to park all the vehicles at our house, or we had a property somewhere where we could park them at, I think we'd probably try that. But we don't have that right now. So we have to find another location where we can park them. And most of the customers we're trying to target are coming in from the airport.
Naturally.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say Anchorage Airport does not have a deal right now, or Turo doesn't have a deal, I guess I should say, with the Anchorage Airport. Similar to maybe a concept a few years ago with a bunch of airports not liking how Uber and Lyft were doing things or whatnot. As Uber and Lyft were becoming more popular, similar with Turo. Turo does not have an agreement right now with Anchorage Airport. I'm pretty sure it's just regarding taxes on like as you have like a physical rental place there, like you pay more taxes to have it on property.
Yeah, it's all about money. The airport wants money, and Turo hasn't negotiated that. Maybe they will in the future.
So you can't technically switch over a Turo car on property, like. So we just we avoid that. Plus, we don't physically want to, I mean, no offense to our customers, we don't want to have an awkward interaction. And then also like try to run around and try to meet you. And like, and things happen with like at an airport, you naturally like a flight gets delayed, you come in late, you come in early, whatever it is, like we don't mind because the car's already there waiting for you. You just go to the car. In a very easy like setup way.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's worth mentioning here. We definitely could have made more money, if we had done things a little different. But our goal with this vehicle rental business is to spend as little time as possible. Our time is the most valuable resource we have, and we know because of that we're taking a little less profit in that by hiring people to clean, paying for additional parking. And out of the 27 rentals we've had total between our two vehicles, we've never met any of the customers.
Yeah.
Isn't that's pretty crazy.
In a good way too, because that meant there was never like a vehicle accident or like major vehicle accident, no, nothing like that. Because like if there was something catastrophic, yeah, we would try to be there ASAP, I guess. I mean, the police get involved. I mean, we can't always drive out to you, especially if you've driven like 5 hours away. We can't go to you, but
we haven't had to deal with that yet. But Turo does have systems and processes such that can be resolved without us being involved.
Sure,
sure. Cool.
I was just saying, in general, it's not like we've had to.
Yeah, and I personally, we've used Turo to rent vehicles a few times. It's weird to meet up with the host. Maybe you haven't done a Turo, but maybe you've rented a Airbnb before. It's weird and kind of awkward and uncomfortable to meet up with the person who owns or is managing that. It's a lot easier, I think, for everyone to just show up to the vehicle, do the proper check-in process, unlock the key or get access to the car, however that might be, and do it that way. I think that's what everybody ultimately wants.
Right. And we've had like sometimes good experiences with people we've met on Airbnb or Turo. But typically it's like this awkward, like maybe the person, like the customer wants to talk for too long and you're like, I have to go. But like you're trying to be like patient and nice, or the other way, they're like kind of like almost come across as like awkward or like kind of like don't want to talk to you. And you're like, okay, I mean, is that rude? I mean, so it's like this weird, awkward thing that you just don't always want to deal with.
Yeah. So I think going back to what we're trying to work on and fix right now is we found a new airport, a new parking lot near the airport that's willing to work with us. And we're going to have to change some of the processes that we do. We're going to have to go back to using a key box system. So right after this, I'm going to have to purchase a few key boxes for the renters to get the keys from. And we got to find a new cleaning turnover situation with that. We don't mind cleaning it from time to time, but ultimately we want to have someone else do that for us.
Even just for the basic need of like, we go on vacation too in the summer. Like it's Alaska summers. We're like, okay, we're traveling, like, because it's beautiful and we want to check everything out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there are times where we're physically not even in the area, so we couldn't even do such a thing.
And we've cleaned both of our SUVs a number of times ourselves. Not something we enjoy. There are people that enjoy that.
I do not enjoy it.
And we can pay them to do that for us.
The Sequoia.
And the Sequoia when there's like omelets and stuff.
I think I had to do that one by myself one time. Don't recommend. But every time we've had a cleaner, they come by themselves and they do a phenomenal job. I am not, because they become masters of that craft. I am not a master of that craft and do not want to be a master of that craft.
Yeah, they enjoy it and do it a lot better than we are capable of doing. So I think what we've kind of decided right now is we're looking to hire an employee and try that out. Someone who can do a little bit of management of the vehicles. Things like taking them to maintenance appointments to get the tires changed. Like right now we're coming up on, we got to change a few tires out. We got to do a few oil changes. That's kind of hard to do when we have 3 vehicles now. That's a lot of moving parts. We could spend probably a couple days fully just doing that.
Right. And we have a child, so that's not a quick and easy process either. It's not like just get in the car. You got to like move the car seat, like so then it becomes like, which cars are you taking? Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, and then the main part of that is doing the turnover process for us, inspecting the vehicle, taking some photos, cleaning it, etc. between rentals. And so that's something that I think we're going to post a job listing here for soon. Try to find someone to help us out at least this summer, and hopefully a situation we can keep someone around for long term. If you're in Anchorage and looking for some side money, hit us up.
Yeah, and potentially even past the summer. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
figure out.
What else we got going on business wise? I think we're gonna our goal is to have 5 vehicles for this summer. We've
We're
got
at 3.
I enjoy scooping through Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and other sites looking for vehicles.
You do a phenomenal job
I
with that.
probably
It's probably from
spend-
that e-commerce, like
yeah,
eBay, Amazon stuff anyway.
Yeah,
So.
I would say yes, I think the prices on say like Blue Book have been inflated a little bit over the last 2 years, but we've purchased 3 vehicles in the last year and we haven't paid over Blue Book for any of them. And I think actually all 3, if you look closely at the Blue Book, we paid definitely on the low end.
Well, all 3 of them, we negotiate the price with the person.
Yeah.
Now, we also weren't buying it like a super duper high in demand vehicle. They were good quality vehicles. They run mechanically great. It's not like they're like falling apart or something. For whatever reason, people just don't want that type of used car.
Yeah, and
or maybe they're too intimidated of buying used car. Maybe we should do a whole episode on, if you're interested, on how to buy a used car and not be intimidated to do so. Yeah. I'm not even scared of it anymore.
Yeah,
like I could do it by myself, but I prefer not to.
We've been married 5 going on 6 years, and together we've purchased now like 7 cars maybe. We lost track. We've purchased for a while there we had purchased 1 every year, and then this last 8 months we've purchased an additional 3 to really boost our stats. And we're looking to purchase 2 more before the peak of summer. So
wait, so how many cars have we done? I think it's 8.
I don't know. You can message us later and we can figure out how many cars. But there's definitely if you have the opportunity to wait and look for the right vehicle and the right price, even in this crazy market, that's how you get a good deal. And sometimes that's tough if your vehicle just got totaled or something and you need a replacement or whatever it might be. I think that's about all for this podcast. We're getting close here to about an hour. And we'll wrap this up. Let us know if you watched this on YouTube or you tuned in live. Let us know how this was. We're working on getting our camera set up back. So I know this lighting is a little
wonderful.
Little
it's
fuzzy.
Mostly your hat, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I suppose that's not. There we go. Now you can see my face. And we'll upload this audio to the podcasting platforms. For those of you that listen that way. Yeah. And we're back. The Entrepreneur Nagel podcast is back.
Check us out on Instagram. Josiah's at
baconbagel_AK. Recently, I've been posting a lot of Amazon seller related stuff, some tips and some failures and some successes along the way. If that's...
Ooh, should I put posting on my personal, some Turo stuff? Maybe.
Definitely. Yeah. We should post some more Turo stuff.
No, I'm gonna beat you to it. I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna
go for it.
And then I'm on Instagram at jellybagel_AK. If you didn't know, our last name is Nagel, so we went with bagel because that's how you spell it, except with an N. And then if you are listening to the podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Entrepreneur Nagel. And then if you're watching on YouTube, you can listen to our podcast anywhere you like to listen to your podcast.
Indeed. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.